All right, here we go. Welcome to round 4 of the World Championships. I'm Rashad Miller with Zach Hill, and we're about to watch Willy Edel play against Brian Kibler. Let's find out a little bit about these players.
Willy Edel, Brazil, top pro Latin America, playing Naya in standard and playing Junt in modern.
Brian Kibler, United States. 54 pro points last season, playing green-red aggro in standard, playing green-white Aether Vial in modern.
All right, so we already have magic going on. We have a Scavenging Ooze and an Arbor for Brian Kibler facing off against, it looks like an Avacyn's Pilgrim and a Boros Reckoner.
Yeah, really good starts for both players. Kibler was telling me one of the things he was scared about going into this event was exactly how good the Naiadex 3-drops were. It has both Loxodon Smiter and Boros Reckoner, 2 cards he was really afraid about. So a really good start for Edel, kind of exactly what he wants, and Kibler already falling behind.
Yeah, he's definitely in the tank as he considers the cards he'd like to play, so he attacks with Scavenging Ooze. Interesting attack.
Yeah, I think he's telegraphing a Gore-Clan Rampager here.
And there is the Rampager, so his Scavenging Ooze is going to get +4/+4 and Trample, and Boros Reckoner is going to redirect his damage. Looks like we're not sure yet. We haven't gotten quite to that point. There was also a counter added to the Scavenging Ooze.
So you take 4?
So Kibler kind of has to 2-for-1 himself, which is not what you usually want to be doing on the 3rd turn of the game, but at least he's dealt with a Boros Reckoner and has a 3/3 Scavenging Ooze.
Yep, and Willy Edel took 4 from that attack. That's going to bring him down to 16. And he got a little bit of value out of that Rampager that went to the graveyard by activating Scavenging Ooze to get 2 life and a counter.
Is it 2 life or is it
It's 1 life? 1 life and a counter.
But yeah, and he was able to deal Edel a substantial amount of trample damage. And the ooze now just ticking up more and more.
The ooze just keeps on oozing.
Is that the sequel to Rolling on the River?
I don't know. It might be the prequel to Yule Ooze.
The holiday Christmas card.
So now that Scavenging Ooze is a 4/4 and Kibler draws his card, flicks him around, and he's going to make a very informed decision because we don't have quite the same information that he has.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk with Kibler about it. He actually said Scavenging Ooze is his worst 2-drop, but right now it's a 5/5 that's gained him 3 life, or at least can become a 5/5 with the Arbor Elf in the graveyard. So Ooze really doing a lot of work right now.
Yeah, Ooze attacks in, no profitable blocks for Willy Edel, so he's just going to take the damage. That's going to bring Willie down to 11, I believe. We'll get the score updated just a moment.
So we can take a look now at some of the cards in the players' hands. We see a Gore-Clan Rampager and a Thundermaw for Kibler, and a bunch of lands from Willie. So
he just played an Arbor Elf, but the rest of his hand was definitely a bunch of lands. So not a lot of action for Edel. Not sure if he's going to be able to defend against this onslaught as a Hell Rider comes down.
Yeah, and Hell Rider right now, a great top deck for Kibler, especially with Rampager in his hand. You know, that's one thing about his particular build. It's an aggressive red-green deck, but it has 4 Rampager, 4 Hell Rider, and 4 Thundermaw Hellkite at the top of his curve. So really easy for him, comparatively speaking, to overcome ground stalls if he needs to.
That's right. And right now, we look at Kibler's hand. He's got a lot of hasty creatures and some pump spells. He is not letting up with Thundermaw Hellkite, Flinthoof Boar, both which have haste, and Gore-Clan Rampager, which is just 4 damage out of nowhere.
So you're sitting here, Kibler, thinking if you want to use your Gore-Clan Rampager to push through that Smiter, or if you just want to develop your board and have a big attack later. I personally like putting Flinthoof Boar on the table, attacking with that Ooze, and setting up for 1 huge attack next turn.
Now, is there anything that Kibler would be concerned with, where he wouldn't just go all out aggressive this turn?
I mean, you know, you're not really expecting any sort of wrath effect from Willie. One thing that is possible, because Arbor Elf capable of untapping Stomping Ground, theoretically Mizium Mortars could hit the table next turn. Now, Willie only has 1 copy of Mortars, but he has 3 copies of Bonfire of the Damned, so you are very interested, if you're Kibler, in putting this game away quickly before Willie is allowed to top deck one of those cards.
Yeah, with the amount of mana that Willy Edel has, the Bonfire would effectively, it would kill all of Brian Kibler's creatures, and he's only one red mana short from being, or one any mana short from being able to cast Elysium Modems with Overload.
You know, it's interesting looking at the list at how similar these lists are. A lot of overlap in the cards. The difference being Willie focusing more on 3-drops, Kibler focusing more on aggressive 2-drops with Strangleroot Geist and in addition to Scavenging Ooze and Flint of Boar. But you have to think that Willie is at least traditionally advantaged in this kind of matchup. You know, usually in an aggro mirror, you just want to go bigger than your opponent.
Right, and speaking of Scavenging Ooze, that's what Willy Edel's play was. There are no creatures in the graveyard, so he's not going to be able to get any counters or gain any life with that creature, but it just puts another body on the board for... And now we get the life totals on the screen, and you see that there's a distinct advantage for Brian Kibler. 23-5. Willie is definitely in defensive mode right now.
Right, and with that Rampager in Kibler's hand and Hellrider on the board, I mean, Willie's 5 is even kind of an illusion. Kibler obviously has been wanting the 5th land for Thundermaw Hellkite for quite some time, but he still has plenty of the goods to put this one away. And Willie just sitting there hoping to draw one of his mass removal spells. I mean, he's got several of them in the deck for exactly this type of situation, but he can't really do a whole lot besides sit and look at the top card of his deck every turn.
Right, and a 5th land for Brian Kibler would be the sure thing win with the Thundermaw Hellkite. He's got a lot of options. He's just going to attack right now with Scavenging Ooze, Hellrider, and Flint Hoofboar. That's going to put 3 Hellrider triggers on his stack, which is going to bring Willie down to 2 even before he gets the block. So let's see how Willie decides to block.
And you see Willie just putting cards in front of every one of the creatures, each one of which is lethal. And at this point, he's just kind of praying that Kibler doesn't have a Rampager.
Right, and with these blocks, he is, threatening to kill the Hellrider, which would have been nice, but a Gorehound Rampager is just going to, give it +4/+4 and trample, which is lethal right now.
I guess if you're Willie, you make your opponent assign trample damage, but yeah, there you see him pack up their cards.
It's like maybe you can get some, gain some life with the ooze, but maybe not. So Kibler kind of easily wins a game 1.
Yeah, and we kind of have to be a little bit surprised there. I mean, Willie's start was exactly what he wanted. His second turn, Boros Reckoner with the turn 1 Avacyn's Pilgrim, but Kibler just kept piling on the gasoline.
Looking to ignite your competitive spark? Take your game to a Grand Prix and see how you fare against the best players in your region, as well as top visiting Magic pros. Upcoming Grand Prix include Warsaw, Oakland, Kyushu, and Prague. For more information, visit wizards.com/Grand Prix. We were talking a whole lot about Scavenging Ooze. Maybe we should get a closer look at this awesome card, because this is a card that hasn't been printed in an actual set up until M14, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it was then originally appearing in Commander as kind of a card that was intended for the Legacy environment, or also, a really good card in the Commander format, obviously, given all the hijinks people do with their graveyards. But, it was a card that was seeing extensive Legacy play. And when that happens, it's always a card that is pretty risky to introduce into Standard. But we felt that, it was still within the realms of reasonable. It's comparatively weaker in Standard compared to Legacy because there's less bananas stuff going on with the graveyard, but still going to be one of the premier cards in the format. And that's exactly what we saw in this past game. We, basically, even though Brian had to 2-for-1 himself to deal with the Reckoner, quickly Scavenging Ooze grew too big to be manageable.
All right, I'm always a fan of a green card that makes it into a Legacy deck because, that means I get to play more Forest.
And whatever makes you happy, Rashad.
Well, we all know what makes me happy. If you could see me tapping a pen right now on my jacket, you would know.
He is literally poking his Forest mana symbol pen as we speak.
Don't make me tap the pen. All right, so let's see. Okay, so you're Willy Edel. You didn't have a very exciting draw.
No.
I mean, it's kind of a mirror matchy matchup we have here. What adjustments do you make in gameplay and in the sideboarding.
Well, in gameplay, I don't know if there's a whole lot else you could do. Out of your sideboard, you're getting Oblivion Ring and tremendously unflinching Courage, which is one of the most important cards in this matchup. Gruul does not have any way to gain life, which means it does not have the ability to straight up win a race. If Willie can stick an unflinching Courage on a creature that doesn't die, he is going to absolutely dominate the board. And then finally, I think you have to be pretty excited about an additional copy of Mizium Mortars if you're Willie, just because as we saw in the last game, you're going to get in situations where you need to top deck a spell and wipe your opponent's table.
Exactly, especially when it's a board wiping spell that leaves all of your creatures in play. That alongside Bonfire of the Damned, those are the two spells that creature decks have been longing for, just to get through these creature stalemates. So let's look a little bit at Brian Kibler's sideboard and maybe play style. He's probably got the same game plan because, it's a mirror match. You just have to see how the cards fly. But what do you think he's doing sideboard-wise?
Well, he does have some innovative cards. The big one here is Gruul War Chant, which allows him to power through blockers and attack for additional damage. I think he's going to want that. I have to expect him to want his 2 extra copies of Bonfire of the Damned. I'm not positive about Zealous Conscript. It's obviously really good against Loxodon Smiter, obviously really good against Boros Reckoner. But, there's no Thrag Tusks, which are the card that you kind of mostly want to steal. And then finally, he's got a Volcanic Strength that I think is in the deck for this specific matchup.
I love a good Volcanic Strength. +2/+2 in Mountain Walk?
+2/+2 in Mountain Walk for just 2 mana, while also keeping your creatures further out of Burn Rage, while presenting essentially 2 haste points of damage. So it's kind of tailor-made for this matchup.
All right. So we got a couple of results in some of the back tables. Yuya Watanabe wins game 1 over Li Tian. So maybe the blue-white-red matchup isn't too good for the Primeval Bounty tech. And the second match, we have Shahar Shinhar, who's up 1 game over Craig Wesco. And quote from Craig Wesco, the game wasn't close.
Now, one thing I didn't mention, I wonder if Kibler wants to bring in Burning Earth. Willie only has 1 basic land. The challenge with that, though, is that tapping out to not affect the board if you're Kibler is really risky in a matchup as tempo-intensive.
Yeah, that definitely sounds risky when you're spending 4 mana to not play a creature.
Right.
So here we go. We have some magic again. We have a couple of land for Willy Edel, and he starts off with a Voice of Resurgence, a card that made a bunch of impact on multiple formats when it was released.
Yeah, Voice, one of the most powerful cards in the Dragon's Maze expansion. Kibler does not have access to Voice of Resurgence, but he does have 4 copies of Strangleroot Geist that sometimes functions essentially as a voice with haste in a matchup where your opponent's probably not doing very much on your turn.
Yep, Kibler's turn 2 play was a Flinthoof Boar, which, thanks to the mountains in play, is a 3/3. Dami Raid comes down for Willy Edel, and he's going to look at the top card of his deck, and it's not a creature, so it's going to go right back on the top.
Now, I will say that playing Domri out into your opponent's Flinthoof Boar is not necessarily the ideal place for that card. You don't mind too much blocking with Voice of Resurgence, but you'd ideally have a little bit more protection for it than he does right now. So Kibler probably has multiple ways to threaten that Domri Raid. He just has to pick out which one he wants to use.
So there goes the attack, and there's no block, so Domri Raid's going to go down to 1. And Kibler plays his own Domri Raid. And thanks to the M14 rules changes, we're going to have a Domri Raid standoff.
I think this is the first high-impact moment of the M14 rules changes at a premier level event.
Wait. We had a Moloku Mirror.
Oh, we did? Oh, I didn't see that.
In Modern Masters Draft.
Okay, so first for a Planeswalker.
Yes, first for a Planeswalker. Technically 2 different rules.
That is true. Yeah, exactly. So we see Kibler hit a Flinthoof Boar off his Domri in 4 versus 1 loyalty. That is quite a big difference compared to what we're used to seeing.
And Willy Edel reveals another Voice of Resurgence off of his Domri. So the card advantage engines are a-rolling. Looks like Willy Edel also has a Mizium Mortars, which we were talking about a little bit earlier. And this may be a good time to use it as just a, Flame Slash, 4 damage to target creature, possibly. But the attack, on the Domri brings it down to a loyalty of 2, and there's a Huntmaster that fails.
Yeah, I think right now you have to be pretty excited about being able to drop that Huntmaster. I mean, you can force your opponent to fight it with the Flinthoof board, but that means he doesn't really get a good attack. You know, because you have a wolf sitting there, and, you know, at least you get to conserve your life total that way. Also means that you're deploying more creatures to the board, making your Voice of Resurgence token a little bit better once your voice dies. And, you know, at the end of the day, you don't want, if you're Kibler, to go ahead and lose your Domri just to deal with a Huntmaster. So Huntmaster putting a little bit of pressure on him. We see Kibler very meaningfully now without a second green source for his Strangleroot Geist.
Yes, that's going to change things a little bit for Brian Kibler. So Willy Edel goes up to 22 life from the 2 life gained from the Huntmaster that fails, and Brian Kibler is considering his options. Strangleroot Geist is not an option.
And Gore Clan Rampager, not normally what you want to hard cast, although sometimes you do it if you have to. Relevantly, if he evokes Gore Clan Rampager, sorry, pays the what was it? It was in Blood Rush cost.
Yes,
that's the name.
Yes.
If he Blood Rushes, his opponent's Huntmaster gets to flip. So instead, he's electing to not do that.
So it looks like the play is to play a second Flinthoof boar. It used the red leftover mana to give it haste, and both creatures attack Domri. And it looks like there's some. Looks like there was a block, but I don't think there was.
No, he
Domri used the fight ability to get rid of the Huntmaster.
Right, exactly. And Willie decided, you know, to absorb 6 damage into Domri, gaining him virtually quite a large number of life there. You see Kibler playing the second boar and attacking allowed him not to have to fight the Huntmaster pre-combat, since he could always just fight the Huntmaster with whatever Flinthoof board didn't take 2 damage.
And Willie just replaces that Domri with a second Domri raid, plus 1 loyalty, brings it up to 4. Doesn't hit on the reveal ability, but there is that Voice of Resurgence that was revealed a little while ago.
And Voice is playing some decent defense right now. Obviously, Willie just wanting his 6 mana to power out that Mizium Mortars. Kibler has a hand full of possibility, but he really still needs that second green source.
He has a hand full of Strangleroot Geist.
Yeah.
That's what he has. He has 2 of those and a couple of Thundermaw Hellkites. So a forest would be ideal for him to, you know, finish playing Magic with this hand.
Right, and it would also importantly set up his Thundermaw Hellkites. So now he has to figure out exactly how important that Domri raid is to him.
Right, so 2 attacks, both at Domri raid.
Yeah, and really, because Kibler knows about the Mizium Mortars, given that he's playing them himself, he knows that he needs to get some value out of those boars while he still can.
Right. So it looks like Willy Edel is considering, just a block with the wolf token. That's interesting. Seems like Voice of Resurgence has a lot of value when you can use it to maybe trade with a Flinthoof boar and leave behind a token that's the largest creature on the board.
Yeah, I'm. You know, the only thing I can think about is him just saying, okay, well, I'm probably going to wipe the board of those Flinthoof boars relatively soon, or I want to keep my voices around for when I need to block at a more critical juncture, or maybe he just doesn't want to lose both his voices to a Gore Clan Rampager.
So now, post-combat main phase for Brian Kibler, and we will let you know exactly what that card is. It is a Scavenging Ooze.
Indeed. So we see Domri doing a little bit more work. Willie missing, however, but it does look like he has the 6th land for Mortars.
And there is the Mizium Mortars overloaded. Wrath of God, 4 damage to all of your creatures, Brian Kibler. Attack with the Voice of Resurgence. That's going to bring Brian Kibler down to 18. So first blood, if you would.
Now you see Willie leaving a Voice of Resurgence back to block a Hell Rider, but can't block a Thundermaw Hellkite.
You know, any of the other haste creatures for Brian Kibler would have been able to be blocked, but Thundermaw Hellkite, being as awesome as it is, just flies right over the other very awesome card and destroys Domri Raid.
8, 10.
Keswick Wolf Run for Willy Edel is going to make this clock a lot faster. He's able to pump his Voice of Resurgence up to 6 power, so that was an attack for 8. Brian Kibler's at 10 life.
Wow.
We have entered Haymaker mode, ladies and gentlemen, as a second Thunderbolt Hellkite comes down, and
Your Domris were not good.
that was quite the race as Brian Kibler wins that match 2-0 over Willy Edel.
When you just jumped to protect your Domi that turn, I was like, that kind of makes sense as a play to set up a bonfire. Like, I'm just like, oh god,
I was scooped the whole game to water you.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
So I couldn't care less like about the wolf. And about the
Yeah.
No.
Whatever. My drone hates me.
Yeah, your draws are not good. This is, the one matchup I was hoping to dodge, and
I had both dragons. Like, I think
Yeah,
it's the
yeah,
best.
Dak
way-
Fader is the
Dragon
greatest
is-
thief in
Like,
the
the first game of
multiverse.
Pedro
Follow his
Terrible.
adventures in the Magic the Gathering comic produced by IDW. A special promo card unique to the IDW comic series comes in each issue. Find out more about these comics at wizards.com/magic merchandise.
Now, I wasn't paying enough attention to know whether this is 100% true. But
Well, it's a good thing that I was paying a lot of attention. So
that
I'm here
is
for
very
you.
good.
I'm here for you.
It looked like if Willie had played the land that was in his hand on the turn, on the second to last turn.
It would have been an attack for 9.
No, but then he drew a land off the top. So I think that would have been 10 damage. But because he held the land, he wasn't able to play 2 lands in one turn. I think he wasn't able to end that game.
I believe he played the Keswick Wolf one. The Keswick Wolf
is
run.
that? And he just had too many lands
So
to
he
be able
just
to play
had
those.
he just had the extra
so
land
he
in
just
his
had
hand.
so many lands that he
Right.
wouldn't have even been able to play it. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. That's so. But given the how bad Willie's draw was, that was actually a pretty close game.
It
all
was.
things considered.
That just shows you the power of Keswick Wolf Run.
Yeah.
So it looks like we are going to jump to the back table and watch Stanislav Cifka play against Eric Frolic. And right now, the game count is 1-0 to Cifka. Cifka is playing blue-white-red control, and Eric Frolic is playing Jund. And it looks like Eric Frolic has an Underworld Connections.
Yeah, he's got Underworld Connections, and Cifka looks like he's digging hard for lands. And missing land drop's not where you want to be when your opponent's drawing 2 cards a turn.
That's definitely... Well, it looks like he has quite a few lands in his hand. He has 3 land in his hand.
Does he only has 2? Is he just
He might have been on the draw against the Farseek draw.
on the drawing? Oh, okay. That's exactly what it is. Okay, so he didn't miss a land drop. Eric just accelerating out mana as the Jundex wanted to do, and getting started on Underworld Connections very early on.
That's right. So we get a detention sphere, which is going to take out the Underworld Connections. So now... Looks like we have a Huntmaster of the Fells that's dropped for Eric Frolic. That's going to bring his life up to 22. Doesn't look like he got to use the Underworld Connections then, so he's probably at a little bit lower. He's at 21. That's correct.
So he was able to use Underworld Connections a grand total of 1 time. Is that what it was?
Well, I mean, sometimes that's all you get. I believe it was a freshly played Underworld Connections.
So Huntmaster of the Fells hitting the board right now. It makes it slightly awkward for Cifka, who either has to burn his Supreme Verdict or give his opponent a little bit of value off the Searing Spear. But with Ifro essentially out of gas and Cifka with an Assemble the Legion that's going to hit the board in the very near future, you've got to be feeling pretty good if you're Cifka.
Yep, the game's still early. Cifka is at a healthy 20 life. Eric Frolic at 21. His life total not as relevant in the early portions of the game in this matchup, and Cifka is examining his options.
And he has a lot of options. We see the Desolate Lighthouse technology in Cifka's hand right now. It's the colorless land that a lot of people will opt instead for Moorland Haunt, but in a more controlling version of the deck, especially that plays Aetherling, I believe, to finish their opponents off. You kind of want to just be drawing more and more cards.
Right. And speaking of drawing cards, a Think Twice from Cifka nets him another land.
And that's what he really wants right now with Revelation in hand. You kind of just want to make every single one of your land drops. You're not in just a ton of pressure. You can Searing Spear the Huntmaster whenever you want to, so you kind of just want to play some lands, say go, and keep your life total relatively well preserved.
Yeah, and that may have been in efforts to keep the Huntmaster of the Fells from changing into a Ravager of the Fells, to make sure that the spell is cast on Cifka's turn.
Oh, right, exactly. So now he's using the Searing Spear, essentially waiting for Ifro to attack. He knows he doesn't have to worry about something like a Gore Clan Rampager, so he can use it during the combat step.
Exactly. So Eric Frolic down to just a wolf token, has a land in his hand, and he's going to Farseek to get another dual land of his choice. It looks like he has a Huntmaster Defense in his hand as well. That's probably going to be the play.
Yeah, and I think you cast the Huntmaster. You know, as it happens, Cifka is got a Supreme Verdict in his hand, but when your opponent burns a Searing Spear on your threat, you kind of aren't anticipating that he's got a Wrath to follow it up. So you probably just run the Huntmaster out there and see what your opponent can do about it.
Right, and Eric Frolic can't really just sit here. He needs to get aggressive, and putting 4 more power on the table is as aggressive as his hand is going to allow him to do. So that's got to be the play. So we're back to Cifka with more and more options. I believe he just drew a Detention Sphere. So if he wants to delay using this Supreme Verdict, he has more options.
Yeah, and that looks like what he's going to do. Yeah, we're going to bin everything. Ifro doesn't have a follow-up in hand right now, and that Assemble the Legion is just kind of aching to come down.
So this looks like a sequence of turns which were just kind of planned out so that this Assemble the Legions is just is as effective as it could be as we see a Thragtusk come down for Eric Frolic.
Yeah, I mean, Thragtusk is exactly what Ifro needed to draw there. I mean, he needed to put some meaningful pressure on Cifka. Cifka just burned a Supreme Verdict, and with Cifka at 16, that Thragtusk's a pretty fast clock.
Yeah, but not as fast as it once was as Assemble the Legions hits the battlefield. That's going to make a token. It's going to make a token on the next turn, and then 2 tokens on Cifka's following turn, then 3 tokens on the next turn, and so on until either the Assemble the Legions is gone or Eric Frolic is gone.
Yeah, we that's exactly what it's coming out of Sideboard to do. We talked about how good Primeval Bounty was in the Jund Mirror. Largely, that's just because Jund is bad at dealing with enchantments. So Assemble the Legion being a very powerful enchantment from Cifka's deck that Jund really can't do anything about.
All right, so Liliana the Veil hits the battlefield and forces Cifka to discard an Azorius Charm. And I believe that Frolic had an empty hand, so he didn't have to discard anything.
Right, yeah. Frolic's last 2 draws have been quite good. Thragtusk first, and then a Liliana sort of demanding the answer, meaning that Thragtusk is going to get to chill out here for a little bit. Of course, unless Frolic can present a Kessig Wolf run, it's going to get chumped for a little while.
Yeah, Detention Spear takes out the Liliana the Veil. So now Eric Frolic is left with just a Thragtusk, which is going to futilely attack into a token and get blocked. And there is a Life Bane Zombie. We were just talking about that M14 awesome card. Would you tell us a little bit of what that guy does?
Yeah, so he's a 3/1 with Intimidate that when it enters the battlefield, your opponent has to reveal their hand. You can take a green or white creature out of it. Now, there aren't that many green or white creatures out of Cifka's deck. I believe he has Restoration Angel, but mainly a 3/1 with Intimidate's not going to get blocked by any number of Assemble the Legion tokens.
Yeah, that would be 3 damage with inevitability. And that's why that he got dissipated by Stanislav Cifka. And now he's mounting the attack with 1 of his hasty red-white soldier tokens, leaving 1 back. And meanwhile, the tokens on that Assemble the Legions is just steadily growing.
Right, and that's what we're seeing right now is a pretty big turn in momentum in favor of Cifka. Snapcaster Mage can target a counterspell just to, sort of make sure that nothing gets kind of too crazy. And Cifka hasn't even used his Sphinx's Revelation yet.
Yep, Frolic draws and plays a Scavenging Ooze to try to keep the pressure on, but it's not going to do much with a seemingly endless supply of 1/1 tokens over for Stanislav.
Yeah, and I think right now you kind of want to just use the Snapcaster Mage because the Ooze blanks it, and that's exactly what we see Cifka's doing, and now the clock for Cifka even faster than it was before.
Yep, and that's exactly what happens. Snapcaster Mage comes down, allows him to flash back to dissipate so that the Scavenging Ooze doesn't resolve. So now we have 4 tokens, 3 counters on the Assemble the Legions. 3 of these tokens are going to attack. 1's going to stay back alongside the Snapcaster Mage. That's going to bring Frolic down from a healthy 27 to 24.
Now, Cifka leaving 2 points of toughness back, which is enough to block and stay alive if Eric plays Kessig Wolf Run and targets Thragtusk. Of course, Cifka also has a Sphinx's Revelation to pad his life total a little bit more. So we can say that Cifka is firmly in command of this game right here.
Right. So didn't quite see what the card was that Eric Frolic drew. He's thinking a while about this one. Not sure what he could have drawn that he'd have to think this much about. Isn't it either a creature or a land? Are we feigning strength in the air of defeat?
Yeah, well, whatever he's feigning, he doesn't have too long to feign it because Cifka drawing 2 more cards now off Think Twice. Again, slow rolling Revelation, trying to get as much value out of it as he can. The 3 power from Snapcaster Mage and the Soldier holding off the Thrag Tusk, and a giant dump of 1/1 red and white Soldier tokens from Cifka's side, threatening to end this game very quickly.
Yeah, that is 8 total tokens in play. They all have haste. There's 4 counters on the Assembled Legions right now. It's kind of hard to count. It almost looks like a pack of zebras where they're just all together. You just don't know how many there are.
I hate when that happens. When there's a pack of zebras, I just can't. I need to count them, all the stripes, man. It makes it too hard.
It just makes it way too hard. So they all get in there, and Eric is going to block one. That's going to bring him down to 18.
It's crazy that he's getting attacked with all these soldiers. He's still at 18 life. But we see a main phase. Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah, if only we had a number scientist.
Yeah,
I was told.
Oh my goodness. The numbers scientist meme now propagating across multiple Pro Tours.
So there is a Sphinx's Revelations. That's going to bring Cifka up to a comfortable 15. Here comes 5 more tokens. I'm also told that Shahar Shinhar wins 2-0 over Craig Wesco. So the ball is rolling with this round as Cifka wins 2-0 over Eric Frolic.
Was that we heard earlier that Shinhar drew, 17 additional cards off Sphinx's Revelation
He did.
so far? It's probably pretty easy to win games with that.
Wait, which is more important, the 17 cards or the 17 life?
I'll take the cards and you take the life, and let's play a game of Magic and see how it goes.
Wait, do I start off with any cards?
You can get your normal 7.
Okay.
One of my cards is a spellbook, though.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'll think about that for a second.
You'll think about that? Oh, okay.
Do we have an ad coming up?
Any ads?
Are they still playing? Or I thought that it was 1-0 Cifka.
All right, so we see our players sitting there in de-sleeving, sideboarding. Cifka does not look too excited for a man that just convincingly won his match.
Yeah, that is not the face of a person, or it doesn't seem like the face of a person who just won.
On the other hand, playing a tournament like this is pretty high intensity, pretty high stress. You have to earn every one of these wins. You know, you're playing against the game's best players, so probably, kind of important to just remain in focus as much as you can.
We'd like to thank Gaming Etc. for being an official card retailer here at World Week. Use the promo code WORLDCUP when ordering on GamingEtc.com to earn 10% off all singles and accessories. For more information, visit GamingEtc.com. So it looks like we're going to slide on over and watch the Yuya Watanabe versus Li Shi Tian match. And if you've been watching before, we actually came down to the booth. Li Shi Tian has a little innovation that Brian David Marshall brought to my attention and said, this is something you're going to be excited about. And I am. What's the innovation that he has going on?
The innovation's main deck Primeval Bounty, a 6-mana enchantment that makes everything in your deck better. When you play, green Rashad points to his badge. When you play lands, you gain life. When you play non-creature, I don't even know how the card works. When you play guys, you get guys. When you play non-guys, you ramp mana or something.
And I think we see one in play, actually.
Oh, is that what's going on?
Yeah,
Is that where all these beasts come from?
Yeah, we have a Primeval Bounty in play next to a Garruk, and we have, I believe, all of those are 3/3 beast tokens. And Yuya Watanabe has Assembled Allegiance with 2 counters on it and 2 red-white soldier tokens.
It's a lot of Assembled Legions we're seeing in play. This is the most enchantments I've seen in a Pro Tour feature match table in quite a while. We've seen really a lot of these games defined by one enchantment or another, where it's been Underworld Connections, whether it's been Assemble the Legion, whether it's been Primeval Bounty. So, you know, the card type making a bit of a return after Scards of Mirrodin said, it's time for artifacts to come into the line.
It's like a little, you just alternate between the non-creature, non-sorcery instant spells in the game of Magic.
Also, a lot of that may have to do with the fact that Putrefy is very good, and so Staff of Nen is no longer an unanswerable source of card advantage in the Jund Mirror.
Yes. So right now, I believe it's Yuya's turn, and he is trying to figure out how to resolve spells and not just fall prey to this Primeval Bounty. Because I believe it triggers on anyone playing a spell?
I am not the authority on the card text of Primeval Bounty, unfortunately, as evidenced by my earlier description of it as making guys and gaining life and stuff.
It also gives you mana.
It gives you mana, too. Oh, okay, I see. I would read the card in front of me, but it is not in English.
So
okay, here we go.
So it's whenever you cast a creature spell, you get another creature, you get a 3/3 beast token. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you get to put 3+1/+1 counters on target creatures. And whenever you play a land, you get 3 life.
Not bad.
Seems like you can easily bury your opponent underneath all of those abilities.
Yeah, and as we see a Liliana get cast now, that's 3 counters onto a beast. Oh, okay, here's... It uses hold on, please.
It's like, please target. It looks like he is targeting a beast with the Primeval Bounty trigger.
This is beast. Oh, okay. Okay, CC tokens. Okay.
So the beast's coming also from Garruk Primal Hunter on top of the 3/3s from Primeval Bounty.
And it looks like we've hit our max in beast tokens, so now we have to settle for 3/3 centaurs.
Oh, okay. But the centaur, a beast in disguise, we might say.
So there's Liliana in the Veil. She hits the battlefield. Probably going to see... I have to imagine the +1, because the -1 isn't going to be very good now. It's going to get a lot worse in the upcoming turns.
Edict you. I guess I'll sacrifice a creature.
So there's Primeval. Well, there's a Thragtusk, which is going to trigger Primeval Bounty, which is going to get us another beast. Not actually a centaur. Those are all beasts. Could be relevant. And it looks like Watanabe wants to respond to Thragtusk entering the battlefield.
Now, Lee doing as good a job as he can at trying to keep pace with that Assemble the Legion. Hard to say whether he's getting ahead. There's another point where we see the Jund deck really want a Kessig Wolf run on the battlefield.
Well, it looks like he's ahead now because we have 5 3/3s, or at least we have 5.
4 and a 5 about to make it happen.
Right. So here's 2 mana. That's going to be a Snapcaster Mage. Looks like it's targeting a...
War Leader's Helix?
Yeah, War Leader's Helix. And War Leader's Helix is going to target Garruk.
Primal Hunter?
Yep, can't quite see how many counters are on that Garruk. Maybe we can get it slid over a bit so that we can get... It looks like there's 1 counter on that Garruk. And now Syncopate is going to counter the Thragtusk.
Now, 1 is a very different number from 0, unfortunately for Watanabe. But
especially when we're talking Planeswalkers.
Right, and so Garruk going to be cranking out some guys trying to match up with that Assemble the Legion, although not at an incredibly favorable rate. But on the other end, Lee's guy is a little bit bigger than the ones on Watanabe's side of the board.
Yeah, so Liliana's +1 was actually used, and not sure what it was that Yuya discarded, but he did discard a card. He discarded a Sacred Foundry, and now we are in attacks.
And it is defense time for Watanabe, who's sitting right now at a relatively precarious 12 life.
So it looks like we're, as you would like to call it, throw creatures in front of attackers.
We're in the throw creatures in front of attackers phase. That is correct, as it's officially known around these parts.
So it looks like definitely the 2 1/1 tokens are going to block. It's just whether or not this Snapcaster Mage is also going to step in the way, and it looks like it does. So Yuya's going to take 3. That's going to bring him down to 9. He's going to lose all his creatures for now, but he's going to have an upkeep trigger that's going to replenish exactly that many.
That's going to be 1 Okay, enough to kill one beast / centaur, but Watanabe's got some work to do to survive into next turn.
Oh, he definitely has some work to do. We take a look at his hand. He has a Jace Architect of Thought. Was that a second Assemble of Legions and a Turn and Burn?
Yeah, I believe one of those is a turn and burn. This Jace activation actually going to be pretty good here.
So this is the
he's
minus.
digging still. Oh, got you, because even 2 power, it's still a lot of attackers. Wow, and he hits the Supreme Verdict.
Right. And he splits it himself. What a nice guy, Yuya Watanabe.
I figured it out.
Yes, I'll just take this one card. So we're probably going to see an attack
Yeah.
from these 3 tokens if I am a future teller.
A future teller and a number scientist.
And a number scientist.
So we're going to see, immediate block of the 2 Assembled Legion tokens. And you have to expect Watanabe to just kind of snap that Supreme Verdict down as soon as he can.
Yeah, so they're all going to attack Garrick. 2 of them are going to get blocked. Garrett's going to lose 1 loyalty counter, and there's a Supreme Verdict. It's going to wipe the board clean of creatures. Still a Garrick and a Liliana in play for Li Tian. He also has the Primeval Bounty that's just waiting, and it's going to take any one creature that Li Tian plays into that creature, plus a 3/3 Beast token. Now, over on the other side, the Symbol of Legions is going to tick up to 4 counters. That's going to give him 4 1/1 red and white soldier tokens for Yuya Watanabe. So there was just a Wrath of God, but both of these players have the potential to put multiple creatures back on the board.
Yeah, it's a pretty packed board that we see right after a Supreme Verdict, but the card that clearly dominating the as yet clear but about to be not clear board state is that Assemble the Legion, which is about to put 4 1/1 haste creatures onto the battlefield next turn. Watanabe right now just trying to figure out, okay, what do I do with Garrick? What do I do with Liliana? And how am I going to overcome my opponent's Planeswalker and Assemble Legion? Which is kind of like a Planeswalker in of itself.
Yeah, exactly. So Garrick +1 is going to put a 3/3 Beast token into play. And I know we have actual Beasts now. We don't have to settle for these Centaurs anymore.
What kind of amateur hour is it?
Yeah, what's going on down there at the feature match area?
I think, Rashad, you should get up and let them know that.
Okay. Thank you, Marshall Sutcliffe.
Ah, yes. There we go. Pig Beast tokens.
So that's 1 creature. So that's going to block 1 of the soldier tokens, but still 3 are going to get through, which means that Garrick is going to go down if Yuya Watanabe wants it to.
So have we ascertained what the 1 card in Yuya's hand is? Or in She's hand, sorry.
Not sure what that is just yet.
We do see Assemble the Legion turn burn for Yuya, which he's probably not too upset about. So we see Lee electing not to activate Liliana, the Veil.
It must be a good card.
Yeah, they're signaling it's something relevant because you know Yuya has 2 cards and you can expect them both to be pretty good.
Well, it looks like it's a card that's going to keep his Garrick alive because there it is. Is that a...
Oh, that's a Putrefy.
Is that a Putrefy?
Okay. So he's, decided not to discard it to Lily, even though it would trade with one of Watanabe's cards, largely, I think, to get 3 extra counters on that beast. Additionally, of course, trying to keep his Garrick alive.
Yeah, because these 3/3 beasts, they're not dying in these trades, whereas Yuya Watanabe's creatures, they're dying every time they attack. Although the numbers are clearly in Yuya Watanabe's side, as he's going to get 5 more tokens and then 6 more. So Li Chan still has to find. He has a lot of digging to get himself back into this game.
Another thing that we can't forget about is Liliana slowly ticking up toward that ultimate. Not something we see happen very many games, but something that could really put a damper on Yuya's plans, depending on how much he's leaning on that Assemble Legion.
So I hear that Yuya Watanabe just drew Sphinx's Revelation, so that's going to be pretty solid, given the board position.
Yeah, and especially given the number of lands that Yuya had out. And you see him throw away Jace, essentially saying, look, I don't need a recurring source of card advantage right now.
So you're just counting out his mana. He's leaving 3 aside. He's probably going to Detention Sphere one of those Planeswalkers, probably the Garrick, because Liliana doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot. Well, no, it's going to be the token.
And he's going to use the burn half of turn burn to finish Garrick off. So now we see Liliana, the only planeswalker on Lee's side of the board, not quite threatening ultimate yet, about to tick up to 5 potentially this turn. 5, definitely not 6.
And there is a Huntmaster out of Fells, which is going to trigger Sylvan Bounty. So we're going to get a Huntmaster, a 2/2 Werewolf. We're going to get a 3/3 Beast Token and a 2/2 Wolf. So 1 spell, 3 creatures. Not exactly back in the game, but he's assembling his own little Legion.
And what did we see Yuya discard to Liliana?
He discarded the second copy of Sid's Assembled Legion that he had.
So that's a pretty good take with Liliana, but of course Yuya about to refresh his hand with at least 4 cards from Sphinx's Revelation, depending on when he decides to cast it.
He's also looking at a Supreme Verdict. Probably not necessary for him to cast right now, especially with him not being in any danger of dying, especially right now. Casting Sphinx's Revelation, he's going to gain 5 lives and draw 5 more cards.
And really, these feature matches we've been looking at are just the story of Assemble the Legion. That card is a powerhouse against Jund. I mean, Jund great at 2-for-1ing, great at gaining incremental advantage, and as we see, great at deploying their own threats to their side of the board. But I mean, Assemble the Legion, as its name, just grows and grows and grows, and at a certain point, 2-for-1s are not going to cut it.
Hey, that was our the GG's Live preview card.
Really?
It was.
Oh man, they must have had some foresight over there at the Wizards.
I guess so. You know, the masses were unsure about the card, but now I think the decision is in that Assembled Legions is legit. Thanks, Trick Jarrett.
So yeah, Lee still unable to muster a Kessig Wolf run, which even at this point, not necessarily clear it would be enough to finish the job. But Huntmaster at least doing a little bit of work right there.
It's doing a little bit of work. It just transformed into Ravager to Phil. It got to take out 1 token to deal 2 damage to Yuya, but there are just so many 1/1 soldier tokens that are just ready to get in there.
Yeah, we see at least 6. It looks like 3 tokens Yuya sort of says don't necessarily know what to do. He knows he wants at least 3 blockers. Of course, the trample on Ravager, pretty substantial.
All right, so there is 9 tokens that decided to attack Liliana, and Liliana just goes down.
Okay, and getting Liliana off the board for essentially no danger of the ultimate before deciding to make it happen with with Supreme Verdict.
Right, so Li Tian gives the card a little rub. He's going to sneak a peek. Didn't quite see what it was. Is it going to be better? Oh, it's a Liliana Deville. I was wondering if it would be better than the 6 soldier tokens or the 7 soldier tokens that Yuya Watanabe would get next turn. And it looks like Yuya just doesn't care. He's content with discarding the Aetherling and probably just going to swing it with 7 tokens and get rid of it next turn.
Right, exactly. Aetherling, kind of just another way to put the game away. Yuya doesn't really need to have one on the battlefield, and more importantly, he has a redundant Aetherling.
You are 18? 17?
Not really going to be the 8th game, I don't think. Assembled Legions is doing a great job of just, well, I guess Yuya Watanabe is just tired of this game.
Right.
Just decides, let's just play this, let's just put this 8th down so that we can get it over with. And that looks like Yuya Watanabe wins 2-1 over Li Tian. It may have been 2-0. It was tied at 1 apiece, so it was 2-1.
Yeah, and in that game, I mean, that is some of the biggest I've ever seen an Assemble the Legion tick up, and that just goes to show, I mean, the one weakness of the Jund deck really is to enchantments, the one permanent it can't remove, and that comes at a cost.
Yeah, and I think that's a big reason why Li Tian decided to put Primeval Bounty in his deck. Here we're back at the booth with Rashad Miller with Zach Hill. I want to tap my pen again, but it was really Assembled Legions that won. Actually, 2 of the matches that we watched.
Yeah, 2 of the matches we saw, I'll rep my giant red mana symbol.
I'm
and say,
a little bit jealous
still
now.
Counts as
Yeah,
real.
I'm a little bit jealous. I kind of wish that Assembled Legions were a green card. It's kind of green.
It feels green.
It's green in spirit.
It's Celestia, I'd say, in spirit, even if it's a Boros card.
All right, so I believe we are ready to send it back to the news desk. If I guess we're not ready to sign.
See, that's what you get for believing.
I know.
Believing is like assuming.
Belief has gotten me in so much trouble.
I
so
can
many
understand
times.
that.
No, I mean, that's fine. So, Symbol of Legions, great card. We got to preview it, and, it was, you looked at it, and it just looked too slow. And this was before Standard had gotten a lot slower. Because right now, Standard isn't a fast. I mean, there's a couple of, blitzy decks out there, but normally you get a lot of time and the games just go long, and you just need something to trump your opponent.
Well, I think one thing that we've gotten used to as players is being able to generate our incremental advantage from Planeswalkers. But the downside of Planeswalkers is, of course, you can attack them. And that's what we saw in a lot of those games. I mean, Garrick eventually succumbed to attackers. Liliana eventually succumbed to attackers. You cannot get an Assembled Legion off the battlefield unless you have a disenchant or unless you can end the game. Right. For all the talk about how non-interactive Planeswalkers are, they do make creatures matter a lot. Not really the case with Assembled Legion. It's going to keep ticking up until the game ends. And that's what we saw there. And against decks that really try to remove every single creature that you play, an Assembled Legion is going to put the ball in their court. It's going to basically say, okay, we'll make something happen. Stop being reactive, or this will kill you. And that's a very powerful effect to have.
Yes, it is. And just to recap all of the matches that we had, we just saw Watanabe win 2-1 over Tian. Shahar Shinhar drew a bunch of cards and buried Wesco under them, winning 2-1. Cifka wins 2-0 over Eric Frolic. And the one we started off with is Kibler 2-0 over Willy Edel. So now I believe they're ready at the news desk. So we're going to send it back over there, and we will be back in a little bit with some more Standard after the news desk. So take it away, guys.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the news desk. Yes, we are here. We've been busy watching. There are still matches going on, of course. Josh Atherton against Tom Martell at 1 and 2. But BDM, the big one that we're still waiting to see, Dmitry Budakov against Martin User at 0 and 3. Is there a theoretical way back at 0 and 4? I think there still is, right?
I mean, I think that if you end up, 8 and 4, you have a shot at top 4. But it's a steep road.
It really is. Let's take a little look at the scoreboard as things stand, still with results to come in, of course, but just to give you the shape of things as we look. Now, if you're thinking that's all a bit higgledy-piggledy, what we do is we update this 3 rounds at a time. We want you to see, you're surprised at hearing the words higgledy-piggledy out there. Okay. All right, never mind. You hush, I'll explain it later. So, what we do is you're seeing where they started at the end of the draft section. So the left-hand side, they were your leaders, the 2 3-0s and the 6 2-1s. The right-hand side, they're the people trying to make up ground. So as the evening wears on here in Amsterdam, you'll see the players rise up and down the leaderboard. But Ben Stark, he lost 3-1 to Reed Duke, who is now 4-0. Edel lost out to Brian Kibler, 2-2. Edel is not super happy about the existence of Lifebane zombies in the main deck.
There was some profanity used on Twitter.
He was unhappy about this.
As a verb.
Yes. Brian Kibler 3-1. As you see, Craig Wesco lost to Shahar Shenhar. Shahar's got his dad and younger brother out here cheering on every round. I talked to his younger brother, and he said he's like 4 years older than me, and I don't play anymore. Basically, I needed to give up and let Shahar be the best at something, which I thought was very fair. Eric 2-2 and Stanislav Cifka 3-1. Then the people trying to make up ground. Shuhei Nakamura. Now look at that, 1-3. He is in big trouble. Yu Watanabe squeezed out a win over Li Shi-chan. Do that right, Li Shi-chan. Josh Atherton 2-2. Tom Martell and Li Shi-chan there at 1-3. Ochoa 2-2. And now, look at that, it's gone there. Dmitry Budakov 1-3. Martin User 0-4.
Wow.
Just staggering stuff. All right, now we've got something else to show you on our big board. Earlier on, we had the Hall of Fame announcement. So let's take a look at the 3 players who made it in. This is a reminder to you. If we take a look, we begin with Louis Scott-Vargas of the United States, and he's very quickly joined in 2nd place on the ballot by William Jensen, just under 60%, and 3rd was Ben Stark. But BDM, we wanted to just take a minute or two to fill people in about who else got plenty of votes but not enough for the ring.
You needed to appear on 40% of the ballots to 40% or more of the ballot to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, falling just below the mark. At 38% we see Chris Bakula in fourth place.
So let's
take a look
at
the balance of that.
Here we go. So Chris Bakula, 38.4. Then you're down to Makihide Mihara of Japan in fifth. Certainly someone I voted for.
And someone who picked up his most recent top 8 at Pro Tour Dragon's Maze.
Shota Yasuoka, 26.7. There you see it. Followed by Justin Gary, 21. Marginally ahead of Martin User. Tomohiro Saito at 18%. Similarly, Guillaume Wafatapa and Saoirse Ikeda, 13.87.
And this is everybody who appeared on more than 10% of the ballot.
Sure, and I guess the obvious sad story there is Chris Bakula.
Absolutely.
Very, very close again. What would it have been, 5 or 6 votes this time around, I guess?
This is 4 to 5 votes, yeah, depending on where they came, whether it was the player committee or the selection committee. You know, he's been very, very close before in the top 5, been 1 vote short in year 1 of the existence of the Pro Tour Hall of Fame. So this is a real heartbreaker for Chris. And honestly, Chris is, 15 points short of eligibility next year. So it's a little bit of work to do.
Okay, so that wraps up the Hall of Fame section for you. We are going to head you quickly as we can into a deck tech. Players came by yesterday and they had lots to say on their standard decks. And we are going to begin with Eric Frolic of the United States. So we're going to be back in about 10-12 minutes from now with live action. Meanwhile, here's our first deck tech of the standard section. Here's Eric Frolic.
Hi everybody, this is Brian David Marshall coming to you from the Magic the Gathering 2013 World Championship. I'm here with Eric Frolic, who is capping off an amazing year that saw him finish 26th, top 8, and 10th in 3 Pro Tours last year.
Yeah, it was a good run.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It brings him here to the Magic World Championship, and we're going to do a standard deck tech, and we are going to talk about Scavenging Jund, the deck you're playing this weekend. I got to tell you, this is a little painful for me, and I know it's very painful for you that I'm about to make this comparison.
Yes.
But Jund feels like, to me, the George Steinbrenner Yankees.
Yeah, this is not my fault. I would prefer to play the Mets deck, but they really haven't been printing very many good common creatures for me lately, so I had to stick with the mythics, the rares, and I think we got a 3-mana Matt Harvey in there somewhere.
Yeah, let's take a look at, these are some of the all-stars, the Reggie Jacksons, if you would not, of the format. Talk a little bit about what makes why these creatures have become such staples in Standard.
Yeah, that is the thing. These creatures are all staples by now. Huntmaster of the Fells, since it came out, if you guys go back to, Pro Tour, was it Dark Ascension?
Yeah.
We played this in our ramp deck. Kibler won the Pro Tour, Paulo got second, so that was a good Pro Tour for us, and Huntmaster really got to shine, and so this thing has been a huge staple in every format. It gets played in Modern now, ever since it was printed, so that thing's a for sure inclusion. And we have Olivia, who, everyone knows by now, kind of, in a lot of ways, the boogeyman, just because it's so hard to beat. You have to think about how you're beating Olivia. These mono green decks that can be really explosive, do a lot of great things, but you can't play removal spells. Olivia just takes over the game completely.
You have such a small window to deal with her if you're doing damage-based removal, right?
She just absolutely takes over. Plus, with the new Legend rules, she's going to be real interesting in the Olivia mirror. So, there's a lot of interesting things going on with Olivia, but everyone knows that by now.
And of course, the cleanup hitter.
Yeah, you got Thragtusk. What more needs to be said? Since it's come around, everyone's realized that this thing is just too much value. It's just ridiculous. I mean, it's been played in every Bant decks are just splashing it for this guy. Like, played in control decks, aggro decks, mid-range decks. Just too good.
So we just finished the M14 free agent signing period, and we have 2 new players that are joining the team. Let's take a look at the 2 new cards. Scavenging Ooze, Lifebane Zombie. These are big, powerful cards that really impact the board when they're there.
Yeah.
Talk us through these two cards.
I mean, just by reading these two cards, you can see how powerful they are. They're, of course, hit relatively hard. They do things that other cards don't. Scavenging Ooze giving you a way to interact with the Reanimator strategies, Snapcaster Mage, and just a way to gain life and create a big threat. Lifebane Zombie, I mean, it's good against basically every deck. Like, it's weakest against decks like Mono Red, but even they have Gore Clan Rampager, Boros Reckoner.
Boros Reckoner, you could hit that card, or Burning Tree Emissary.
Well, Burning Tree Emissary is a little hard to hit. It probably requires something weird to happen, but anything is possible.
They're on 1 mana.
Yeah, if you get really lucky, sure. But no, like, it's just very hard to build a deck that Lifebane Zombie isn't good against. I mean, some of the blue control decks that play just Aetherling, sure, but you still have a 3/1 Intimidate creature, and so...
I was going to say, Intimidate seems to me like actually a pretty relevant also in terms of being able to hit Planeswalkers, right? Being able to just like get through.
It does a lot of things. It also, if you look at the red-green aggro decks, you get to take their Gore Clan Rampager to their big threat, whatever it is, and it trades with Flinthoof Boar. Like, it just... It deals a lot of damage to creatures, players, planeswalkers, all of that, and it also gives you something good to do when you don't have Farseek. Like, one of the reasons that, you know, Jund wasn't necessarily, like, it's always been one of the best decks, but Farseek was the best card. If you didn't draw Farseek, your draw is very different than when you did.
Right.
And so what these two cards do is give you something to do with your mana. And like Josh Utter-Layton kept pointing out, like the 2-for-1s in Jund are supposed to start at 4 mana. Like being able to just throw this thing out at 3 just gives you something very unfair to do.
Right, and you're just not afraid to like take a card, put this down, and then block something and trade, and then that's just all upside for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, then you're leading to all the 4 mana cards that we just showed that are all 2-for-1s and Huntmaster the Fells, etc.
So you mentioned Farseek.
Farseek's the best card.
This is the best card. We buried the lead.
Yeah.
What makes Farseek so good?
It's tempo. I mean,
just jumping to 4 on turn 3.
I mean, the thing is, you're basically playing a deck that is clunky with the most powerful cards. The reason that people keep writing up that they hate Jund is because you're just throwing all of the most powerful cards together into a deck. The problem is these cards, like, on the first page that we showed had Huntmaster, Livian, and Thragtusk, 4/4/5. You need to be able to cast them.
Right.
You want to be able to cast them earlier so that they actually give you the advantage before you get run over by faster decks.
So we have some cheaper cards here early on, and I guess these are in a sense also buying you time to get to that.
Yeah, I mean, they're just with power creep and similar things. The creatures are so good these days. Like, we saw how good the creatures are in this deck, but you know, you're looking at, there's plenty of elves, there's Champion of the Parish, there's Stormkirk Noble, there's just so many early creatures that are so powerful.
So Tragic Slip deals with those. Dreadbore can deal with, it can deal with Olivia, it can deal with a Planeswalker.
The reason why we chose these removal spells is because, again, they are able to deal with early things. A lot of times you do have 2 or 1 excess mana laying around, but also these cards can all kill Thundermaw Hellkite. These cards can all kill Olivia. These are huge problem cards that are extremely powerful.
Putrefy as well.
Putrefy, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry,
Same thing at instant speed.
Let's take a look at the next slide, and we see some more of the things in your toolkit.
Some more things that make Farseek good.
So Mizzium Mortars, Bonfire of the Damned, Rakdos' Return, and Garruk Primal Hunter. These are the last spells in your deck.
Sure.
So why these cards?
Mizzium Mortars is not necessarily a lock to be in our deck. This is our last slot that we're still trying to figure out between Bonfire, Doomblade, Abrupt Decay, Putrefy, Dreadbore, Tragic Slip. There's so many removal spells. This one we're hoping can kill an Olivia and also be useful in the late game to, you know, sweep up. Bonfire, we all know by now. We've all seen all seen the GIF. Obviously a very powerful card. The only thing that can get you out of a lot of situations, and you know, you draw it on the right turn and just kill them. Rakdos Return in every matchup that is slower. It's just the most powerful thing you can do. You know, if both people are trying to set up Olivias and Thragtusks and Garruks and 5 mana spells, being able to take all their hand and kill a Planeswalker is just...
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, the ability to kill a Planeswalker with this and dump their hand is just unbelievable.
And Garruk is Garruk.
All right, let's take a look. Let's take a look at your mana base for this deck, because I have a question. In light of M14 coming in, we see the 3 shock lands as they've been known to be, and let's just take a look at the next landslide as well. And you know, we see these 3 lands. it seems like you have a lot of non-basic lands. Do you worry about Burning Earth? I mean, this is a card that was a factor in Calgary.
Yeah, Burning Earth can be problematic. If they have an aggressive start followed by Burning Earth, there's really just nothing you can do. You're generally going to be dead. We added, we have 2 basics.
So let's take a look at the next landslide.
Yeah.
This is the last of your 60. 2 swamps and 2 Guessing Wolf runs. Just 2 more non-basics.
Yeah, well, it's just too good. I mean, what are you going to do? But yeah, there are matchups like where they're playing Burning Earth where you just Farseek on 2, you get basic swamp to try to mitigate some of the damage. The thing is, a lot of your spells are actually not impacted as much by Burning Earth, especially because they're taking a turn off to cast it. So when you're falling far behind, you need those cards at the beginning of your life to be able to stabilize. But if you're casting a 4-mana enchantment that doesn't attack you, then the life gain, the fact that it's mitigated with Thragtusk gaining 5 and you taking 4 or 5, it's not as bad when they're not dealing damage to you with creatures, and then you're presenting a huge threat for them to deal with. So, there are games where you can't beat it, and there are games where it does nothing. It really just depends. We have a couple sideboard slots dedicated to, be able to deal with a lot of different threats with of course Burning Earth being one of them. So
let's take a look at some of the sideboard cards. I'm assuming this is still a little quantum. Where this may be the sideboard that you're playing.
Yeah, you never know when you get cold feet.
Slaughter Games. Where are you?
Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah, you just go away.
I mean, a lot of decks that you'll see, kind of a standard list, is going to have 3 Lilianas. We're not necessarily expecting as many other matchups in this tournament that Liliana is going to be good against, namely Bant Hexproof. So it's not quite as powerful as usual, and we're not bringing it in against very many decks. And so it doesn't feel like necessarily the best thing you can be doing against blue-white control and blue-white-red. And so we're starting to think that Slaughter Games might be more powerful, especially in a deck where, as you'll see, we're boarding in Duress and we have Lifebane zombies. Slaughter Games gets even more value, where you can basically be stripping their hand of multiple cards, Cabal Therapy style.
And it's so funny to me, you say Liliana Veil coming back. I mean, this was really the pillar that the modern Jund deck and standard modern Jund decks are built around.
Yes. No, Liliana is an extremely powerful card, 3-mana Planeswalker. I've played it in tons of formats this year. I've played it in the PT and GPs, and it's certainly powerful, but it's just not that good against the aggressive decks that are now running tons of elves. Elvish Mystic was printed, adding even more of those. It's not great against Jund. Creatures like Huntmaster of the Fells and Thragtusk just doesn't do that much against them. So it's kind of lost some favor in the current metagame, but still extremely good card.
Okay, so we see another Rakdos return. Let's take a look at the next slide. Again, I guess I'm assuming for the aggressive decks and those Elvish Mystics you were talking about.
Elvish Mystic is something you can kill, but you're more looking to kill like the Champion of the Parishes before they get out of hand, and then your Strangleroot Geists and your the Necromancer from
Xanthid
M14.
Necromancer?
Yeah, things like that, or Voice of Resurgence. Yeah, those are the cards you really want to get rid of.
Underworld Connections?
Yeah, it's just Phyrexian Arena, just something for, the slower, more, mid-range control decks where they really can't beat it when your cards are so powerful, you're able to hit all your land drops and just overrun them with card advantage.
You mentioned Duress.
Duress, very powerful effect, just to stop the other powerful cards.
Right, and then Curse of Death's Hold. Interestingly, this I assume is one of your answers to Burning Earth here, Golgari Charm?
Golgari Charm has... all the modes are pretty good. I mean, if you know that they have a bunch of Supreme Verdicts, you can use it against Wrath of God. If, against Bant Hexproof, you can kill enchantments, Burning Earth. And then just giving all creatures -1/-1 is good against token decks and can be good against the same decks that Burning Earth that you're boarding in against just to kill a bunch of elves. It has a lot of applications. I think all of them are pretty good.
Where are you bringing in the Curse?
Again, against the token decks.
Yeah. And so, Barter and Blood. One Barter and Blood. Why? I mean, is that there for a very, very specific purpose? Or?
Barter and Blood is the best card if someone does play Bant Hexproof. Like I said, it's not something we're necessarily expecting, which means there's probably going to be 8 of them. So just see that happen. But it's the best thing you can do there, and I found it to be very good against some of the more mid-rangey / while still being aggro, red, green, and Nihilus type decks. Like, this card really blew me out in Montreal, and it's just something that can take care of like a dragon and another creature. Like, a lot of times they have their own like Mizium Mortars and Bonfires to clear out your team, and so being able to then wrath them back and being able to stabilize before casting Thragtusk is just game changing. Okay.
Well, there you have it. You get a look at the newest iteration of Jund in Standard with Eric Frolic, looking to build upon an amazing 2012-2013 season coming into the next year. For Eric Frolic, this is Brian David Marshall signing off from the Tournament Center.
Right then, here we go. Dmitry Budikov of Russia, he's up against Tom Martell. They're both at 1-3. Shahar Shenhar is 3-1. He's up against Ben Stark of the United States. Text coverage, Brian Kibler, 3-1 against David Ochoa, 2-2. We begin, though, on video with Willy Edel of Brazil, 2-2, against Craig Wescoe, your last Pro Tour champion, at 2-2. Round 5 of the 2013 World Championship begins now.